Hi guys, and welcome to my review of Hokum. So this is a horror movie by Damien McCarthy. This is his third project, but first Hollywood horror movie. I have been aware of his other two movies, so I haven't really got any sort of like I didn't sort of go into this with any sort of really real knowledge about the director. But I will. The movie stars Adam Scott as this writer who basically checks in at this Irish inn to scatter his parents' ashes. He basically finds himself shut in the honeymoon suite of this inn when it basically gets closed down for a season, where this establishment may or may not be haunted by a witch. So this is a movie that really kind of came out of nowhere. Where at least for my personal experience, I hadn't really seen a whole lot of marketing or anything like this. So I never really. So yeah, I didn't really necessarily really know anything about this movie until it had. Really got released, and then I saw some of the stills and some of the publicity shots and stuff, and I kind of felt like it wasn't necessarily really on my radar, because I kind of foolishly just kind of like dismissed this initially of just this being kind of like a bit of a run-of-the-mill supernatural horror, where it's going to have like some scary visuals, maybe some sort of like jump scares, and it was going to kind of fade without a trace. And but as it got released, it started to generate some real buzz. So I kind of like started to kind of like sit up and kind of like take notice of this movie, and I'm so glad I did, because yeah, I mean, sure, this movie does take him, it does have its like creepy visuals, it does have its jump scares, it takes a lot of tropes that are actually very very familiar to horror, but what it does really well is it infuses it in a way that kind of feels kind of really fresh and inventive again. And I'm also really happy to report that while it does have like those creepy visuals, and it does have like jump scares, they are kind of like used sparingly, and it has a lot more kind of like bows to its arrow, where a lot of the accolades of this film actually rely in how well it utilizes its location, how it utilizes its set designs, in particular how it utilizes its sound design, which I think is like one of the best uses of sound design I've seen in a horror movie in a really long time. I can also really appreciate how this movie does have layers. When we are introduced to Adam Scott's character, he comes across as a very rude person. He comes across as a very like arrogant person. He's definitely sort of the interactions that he has, he's kind of like pushing people away, and he's kind of like immediately pushing the audience away as well, which is also a really quite fresh and quite bold decision for a horror movie to do, because yeah, you're always going into a horror movie, and the character that you're kind of following through all of this, you're sort of meant to kind of like sort of feel for someone, and you do absolutely end up arriving at that place. but it does it so effectively, and I think that that's another thing that I really appreciate about this movie. That you know, how this movie does have layers. It does have a little bit of an art house kind of horror type element to it. It's similar to like Hereditary. I mean, this movie isn't really like Hereditary, but I kind of like make a comparison in a sense where Hereditary is one of those movies where I feel like it's not necessarily a film that I always kind of like gravitate to kind of like rewatching a lot, but I feel like if you do rewatch it, you can notice something new about it each time, and I feel like it's totally the same here, because I feel like that this movie does have a lot of layers. Obviously we go on to this very almost self-discovery redemptive arc with Adam Scott's character, where he kind of like starts off where he's very sort of standoffish. He's very much kind of like pushing it away. There's things where that he does in the first act where it's sort of like if you had done these things, like you would be kind of like a lawsuit in waiting. And then yeah, as the movie kind of like unfolds, and him being trapped in this in this honeymoon suite in this Irish inn, as this kind of like setting forces him to kind of like come to face with his own sort of like demons and whatnot. It really kind of like is something to really admire, just how masterfully it does that. And At times, the movie did remind me a little bit of a kind of like a video game as well, where it almost seemed like have this like almost like Resident Evil type element where where we find like Adam Scott's character having to kind of think outside the box a little, having to kind of like think how he's going to kind of like navigate his way to doing this, how he's going to basically kind of like get out of this, how he's sort of like, you know, kind of like looting for different things, you know, all of that kind of stuff where you're kind of like having to solve these little kind of like puzzles as you kind of like go through this horror. It does have elements of that about it. Yeah, like I said, guys, I thought that this movie was actually really strong, and I think if you're in a position to you know get yourself down to a cinema and you know are a horror fan, then I think that you should absolutely go out and check this movie out and support it, because I do think that movies that kind of like utilize horror so well and so effectively as this movie does, I think are becoming quite a rare thing. So I think that this movie, you know, I think that it is important to kind of like really give props to movies that do master the craft really, really well here. And so yeah, guys, that pretty much wraps it up. So yeah, thank you guys for taking the time to watch this review. If you enjoyed this review and you want to see more, don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Please feel free to let me know down in the comment section if you've seen Hokum, and if you did, what your thoughts were, and if you haven't, are you planning though? What's your excitement level? All of that kind of fun stuff. You know, let me down in the comment section, and I will see you guys in the next video. You guys take care.